Well, back to my lovely Fender. What I did here was I finished stripping all the paint up to where I had bondoed it. I cleaned up this section and this with a long board 40 grit. Cleaned that up. I'm about ready to skim this whole thing with Bondo. By the way, this farm and implement primer that I was talking about works good, but it's slow to dry. It was really gummy trying to sand it off, so it might be better if you got a cold climate to get something else. But anyway, looks like what happened here was when this was hit, it drove the fender back into here and crunched this metal. It warped it up here, and I tried to heat it and stretch it out, but I got no way of getting under here to pop that thing out. But what I did do was loosen up the fender and get me an even gap all the way around, and I was able to hammer the fender down. You can see it's still moving a little to where this is flush. And what I'm going to do now is finish cleaning this area up, and I'm going to re-bondo this dent right here and try to get me an even radius in there. I'll clean the rest of this up with a paint stripper so I can see what's going on, and we'll bring you back when I get a little closer to what I'm trying to do. I was able to get this fender up without tweaking it. Took all my bolts out here and just pried it up, and I was able to get down in here and clean this all up. Good enough for Bondo, but I'm still got a dent right here. And I don't really want to just fill this. What I'm thinking about doing is taking a welder or taking my cutoff tool and opening this up. And then kind of using something to get in the hole and hammer this out straight. Kind of can't make up my mind whether I want to cut that and weld it and do all that grinding, or just try to fill it. I started taking this fender off, or trying to loosen it. I got one bottom bolt out, which was good, and there's one more bolt right there, and it goes through the thing, and it's got this kick panel on it. Right here, and I got all the screws out of it. The problem is that there's one screw way up in there, and the emergency brake is right in the way. So it looks like you have to pull this emergency brake out to get the screw out of that top of that kick panel. I did find a lot of leaves and trash and stuff in here. I'm going to have to take that all out. So I will have to take off this kick panel. And it looks like the only way to do it is to take off that emergency brake. So that ain't going to happen today. So taking this fender off, I might be able to grab that with a pair of vice grips or something and turn it from this side. And that one there's not holding, that's a hinge bolt down there. So I could probably get that bolt out, but I'd still have the problem of how would I ever tighten it up. So I got to take out this panel, and that's not gonna happen today. So basically, that answered my question. What am I gonna do here? I can move this fender around. I've got it cleaned up pretty good. I think I probably should take it off to paint it. I have to get this one bolt out, and then there's a couple right here. It should come off pretty easily, and I think I can get that fender off. That's about all that's holding it. It's these top bolts, and one here in the back, one in the bottom. But I think what I'm going to do is just pry it up and get some Bondo in there. Still having trouble deciding whether I ought to weld it or not. I'm not going to. I'm just going to go ahead and Bondo up that place. It was Bondoed way up to here before. So I think I can do a good enough job. Look like the clouds are coming. I can get some kind of primer on this before the rain hits. Yeah, I got it propped open here with my little ratchet. Got enough room in there to put some Bondo in. I mixed it really hard or hot, so it'll dry pretty fast. And try to get a little here on this fender. I've got this cleaned up pretty good. I could probably reach up in there with a wire brush and get the rest of the rust out of this area. I think I got a brush that's big enough to reach through that, reach down in there and hit that rust. I'll look that up while this stuff is drying. Alright, I got it all Bondoed up down in there and sanded with 80 grit, nice and smooth. I've got that patch filled here, and all the rest of this fender basically pretty good shape. So I'll just blow this off with air real good. I got some rust up down in the bottom down here, so that ought to fix anything that's in there, and the rest of this I was able to sand pretty good. I can probably get some pretty good shot of primer down in there, and I'll just go ahead and give this a light coat to protect the metal. I pretty much did all this top part here with a board sander. I patched a couple of little tiny holes there. I'll knock that down with the DA before I put more primer on it. Well, there it is. Looks pretty good. The firewall part's what I'm looking at. The fender looks like I still got a little hoopty-doo in it right there. I tried sanding this with a board sander and 80 grit. It is balled up, so the primer really wasn't dry. But I went ahead and pretty much primed the rest of this. Looks like I'm going to have some creative work here to get that stripe back in there. My bottom piece turned out alright. It's not perfect, but it's pretty close. All of this is starting to look good. And this bottom don't look bad. From this angle with the shiny on it, it looks like I got quite a bit of work right there on that. Body line, but it looks to me from here that most of it's high and I can knock that down. I'll just have to take my time, but I got it. A lot of the work done. Now there's a lot of little work. Mostly fine sanding. If it was nice and sunny, it would be a different story. But hopefully this will dry good enough to sand. And what I'll do is just rough it up, and then I gotta put a thin coat over the whole thing. And then when I sand that, the whole fender will be one piece. Yeah, it don't look too bad. Primer, when it's wet, shows up a lot of stuff. Well, that's it for today. Clean up my mess and wait for tomorrow. Now here's our fender in the morning with light on it. You can see I got quite a few dents right there and no way to get to them. I've got this bottom one here straightened out pretty good. So I need to hammer this all out. And the only way to do that is to get to the fender. And I tried to take it off yesterday. I got it all loose. Pulled the bottom out, top. Yeah, there's a little bit here, but this is worth a video here. This panel, this is the vent panel that goes up in there, and it's got a screw right there in the top. It's right up under here somewhere. And this emergency brake was covering it up. You can't get the screw out. It's the only way to take it out is from the to get up in there, you got to get this emergency brake pedal out. Now if you see there's two holes, those are on the inside of the fender. Now it took me quite a while to even find these things. I don't know if this camera's focusing there, but there's two bolts right there, and the only way you can get them is from the outside of the fender. And when you get those two bolts out, then you can finally get to this one right here in the top. And that's the one I was fighting with, couldn't get the fender off. So now I can take that bolt out and I can go ahead and remove this front fender. Okay, I got this fender bolt out. Gotta be real careful you don't lose it out of your wrench and drop down in here. I don't know if you get it out or if it'll fall all the way through or what. But fender should be loose now. Loose. Now all I have to do is pull this bumper off, and I got a couple little bolts right here, and I think this whole fender and light and everything will come off. Well, it turns out you got to pull the valance off the grill thing, and you got two bolts right here in this bottom valance splash panel. I was able to just loosen that bumper up and pull it down. Should be able to get the fender off now. We'll switch up and see what we got. Back to my crummy tripod. Looks loose, so it should come off. Still hitting something. Take this whole valance off, maybe not. And I got one more little bracket down inside. You can see it right there. I'm supposed to take out this whole headlight and everything. I'll do that. I'll pull the rest of this apart. Oh, good. Now I can see this crease that was put in it by that bottom aluminum panel. I can knock that out, and I can see the stuff in here. I can see where I bondoed it up in there. Yeah, so I should have took this thing off in the first place. Yeah, it looks like this is probably where I heated it up, taking the paint off, maybe not. And this is the area I'm trying to get to. At least I can wire brush this all off now. Clean up all this mud and junk, and be much better. Yeah, acorns. So anyway, I probably should have took that fender off in the very first place. It's like this was. Anyway, that's my next job, cleaning all this dirt and mud and junk out of here. And it's squirt some primer on it. Hopefully it'll kind of dry. Going to be a fairly warm day, no rain. Yeah, it's looking like they had a lot of mud and silt in it. I was vacuuming this all out. Well, at least I got it off. Well, it was actually a good idea to take that fender off. Now I can see that that's bent down. I fooled around getting the fender up, but that's the base plate that needs to be straightened. And I'll fool with the fender after I get this straightened. I should have done that first. And there's a lot of rust in here, needs to be killed. But interesting parts right here. And it looks like this was somehow broken. And they brazed it. And of course the brass is broken, and it got another crack back here. So I'll have to weld this up. Don't think I'm obviously won't have to grind it down very much, but I can TIG weld it or MIG weld it. It'll be nice, and I can actually sand this real good in here and get the right curve in it. But definitely need to get this rust all stopped. I'll use that rust converter and put on here for now, and then while it's drying I'll weld it up. Well, the more you look at it, the more you see this patch panel was obviously bent in. It needs to be straightened out. All this is crunched up, needs to be fixed. That could be straightened a little. But I get looking back in here, and it looks like this panel was welded. I was thinking I'd put a piece of angle iron in there, but that's not brass, that's metal, steel. So I can clean up that weld. It didn't penetrate very well on the car side. I'll do that when I patch this part. But I can get a pretty good weld in there. If it was brass, I'd go ahead and put an angle iron in it, weld that in. But I'll just try to get as much weld up in there as I can. This is going to be kind of tricky trying to weld around that brass. That stuff just wants to splatter and pop and do all kinds of stuff, but I think I can get this patched up. I put that rust converter on it, wiped it down with a rag. It works pretty good. Primer should go right over top of that. So, like right there, you can see I got a little too much in there. Well, not too much. You can leave it. It'll eventually dry. But wipe it out. Once it converts the rest of it's just not doing anything any good anyway. So anyway, got a little welding to do here. I'll get set up and do that, and then a little body work on this end. Straighten some stuff out, and then some sanding there, and eventually we'll throw some primer on it. That's my goal today, is get this all primed. We'll see. I don't even know if I got you set up here right, but put a little bead in there. It didn't look like it's going into the metal good. So I'm running 70 amps this time. That should penetrate. Yeah, that put a hunk of weld on it. So, first time I didn't have my heat right, but that penetrated good, and I tied it into that other weld. Hope this is showing, I can't tell. Press on. That looks much better. Got it down some. I'll try to. This right here is going to be the worst part because I've got that brass in it. So I'm going to try to lay a bead back away from this edge, back into here somewhere. See if that'll maybe still hold to that. If I had a torch, I'd get that brass out of there and arc weld it. Well, hopefully you can see. Try to work on this brass part first. Burnt through. All right. Trying to go too fast. Just to tack welding it. Just working around the edges of the hole. Filling it a little at a time. Yeah, they got Get that empty or filled up. Well, that's not the prettiest weld in the whole world, but it's nice and wide. So it should be pretty strong. Probably ought to grind it down a little. I'm going to put the fender over it and then see what I got there. If I don't have to, I really don't want to grind that weld down, just leave it built up like that. Not after beauty here. And then I got this one little corner right here I need a weld. Yeah, I stuck the fender on it, and it looks like all this section right here, that needs to be ground down. Probably about an inch back. Alright, well, that's good enough. I'll do that.